Hey guys, and welcome to the Lower Chesapeake Bay Fishing Report, the first podcast to bring you the local offshore, nearshore, and inshore fishing report, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. We got a great fishing report lined up for you guys this week, but first let's hear who's making the show possible. Sam Rust Seafood, your locally trusted source for premium wholesale seafood. Servicing customers from Hampton Roads down through the Outer Banks, Richmond, and surrounding areas, including Fredericksburg, Charlottesville, and Lynchburg, for over 80 years. Committed to the highest standards in the industry, Sam Rust distributes the best of the ocean directly to your restaurant, hotel, or grocery store on time and at a great price. Visit samrust.com to discover how quality, tradition, and sustainability come together. So don't cuss, call Sam Rust. Listen up, folks. AFTCO has a new promotion for all Great Days Outdoors Podcast Network listeners. They're now offering a camo sunglasses cleaner cloth with any purchase of AFTCO products. I especially enjoy their hooded sun protection shirts, as well as their Seiko fluorocarbon. All you got to do to get your coupon code is text LCBFR to 779-345-2918. Again, just text the letters LCBFR to 779-345-2918 to get subscribed to our email list, and we'll send you the promo code via email. All right, guys, well, welcome to this segment. We're going to dive into just a couple of different species, target species, if you will. Welcome back to the show, Captain Andy Kim with Sashimi Sport Fishing. How are we doing, Captain Andy?
What's going on, man? Been a while.
It has. I mean, gosh, I think the last time you and I talked, it was hot outside. You guys were crushing the cobias. We were talking about some of that killer cobia recipe. It's dinner time. I'm hungry. I know you're driving home from work. I mean, talking about that recipe makes me really hungry.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, man, tell me a little bit about what you guys have been doing lately. What you been seeing, what you been catching, what's going on?
So I have teamed up with Robbie with Real Release Sport Fishing because he has a bigger boat, so it's a little bit easier to do these offshore wreck fishing trips.
Uh-huh.
And of course, my boat's only 25 foot, so it would take quite a beating to go out 20 to 40 miles every day. And especially in this unforgiving Virginia fall to winter transition,
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely not for the lighthearted.
It's a little bit more warfare fishing as opposed to just your typical, calm down the bay. And it's interesting you say that because I remember one of our first conversations on the show, and you shared a good bit about some of your wreck fishing experiences and a bunch of
Yeah.
really great tips on flounder. And Captain Robbie with Real Release, that boat, the Outlier, is definitely it's longer, it's heavier. It's got kind of a fully enclosed sort of cabin there to keep you out of the elements. You can even
Oh
go up
yeah.
in the berth if you really got, cold. And like you're saying, this time of year, those temperature changes, you're going to have that potential for a little bit rougher ride, a little bit cooler temps, especially in the early morning as you're headed out there. So yeah, talk me through a little bit more about what you guys are going to be targeting and how this kind of team up between you two is going to work. This is really cool. I love kind of the idea of just, hey, let's collaborate, let's put the resources together and make for some really killer trips going into the fall. So species, what species are we going to be targeting?
So yeah, like we were saying, me and Robbie teaming up. He's pretty good at wreck fishing. I will give him that. But what I bring to the table would be the offshore deep dropping, golden tilefish, grouper, and blue line tiles, black belly rosefish, barrelfish. Of course, we got numerous species of groupers here in Virginia.
Hmm.
But Robbie will be more. He's more the sea bass, flounder. I mean, shoot, he last week or no, a couple days ago, he slow pitch jigged a Kobe off a wreck, like
Whoa.
53 incher, yeah, in like 100 feet of water.
Wow. So, okay, hold on a second. So, a couple things that you said there caught my attention. One would be 53-inch cobia because I feel like they're already like a long lost distant cousin that I, saw at a, family reunion 4 years ago. I miss them so much.
Yeah.
But
Oh yeah.
slow pitch jigging, what is that?
Okay, you got like your high speed vertical jigs, which is more narrow. It's a lead jig between it can be between 3 to 8. I mean 12 to 20 if you're tile fishing, but 3 to 8 most common used. And you're bouncing this jig off the bottom,
Hmm.
and it's called slow pitch because you're using these really light rods, and you're all you're doing is basically you're pulling this jig off the bottom and you're allowing it to flutter back down. It has the jig
Uh,
itself doesn't have a lot of action when you rip it up, but when you let it when it's falling down, it flutters like it's almost like a dying bait fish.
okay. Got it. So it really creates that action in the water, that kind of flutter, that signal of I'm having a hard time
Something's dying.
swimming. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Man.
and the slow pitch is just the technique of doing it. It's your
Okay.
10 to 20 pound line in deeper water, and you're just basically the slow pitch aspect of it is you're using a vertical jig on the bottom and you're jigging hard up once, maybe twice, and you're allowing that jig to flutter all the way back down to the bottom.
Got it. Okay. I got the image in my head now. And so what depth of water was he in and when he caught that 53-inch cobia?
I would have to talk to him again. I think like 80 plus feet of water.
Wow. And on that light
Yeah,
line too. I bet that
on the
was
light line.
I bet that was a fight.
Yeah,
And that's kind of cool
100%.
to know that like that's the fun of doing that sort of fishing is like he might have
Oh
been out
yeah,
there
you never
targeting
know.
yeah,
You
boom.
just that's what I love about deep dropping and just you don't 100% know what you're going to get bit down between when you start getting to that 3, 4, 5, 600 feet of water.
Hmm.
You really don't know what you're dropping, like what you're going to catch. Of
Right.
course, you're going to be your target quotations. You're targeting, let's say, golden, blue line, rosefish, barrelfish, but when something bites on the end of that line, you really don't know what it's going to be till you bring it up.
Right.
And
Right.
that's what I love about deep dropping. It's just that curiosity of just what's down there.
Hmm.
Sometimes we'll drop these 5 pound lead rigs all the way down into 800 feet of water, 1,000 feet of water where the sun doesn't shine, and you just it's kind of cool just to see what you actually catch and what type of species are actually out there that people that don't fish offshore on the bottom regularly are just never see.
Yeah, it's almost like a sense of wonderment, like that you're going into the unknown and it's exciting and you have no clue what might come up. It could be what you're targeting. It could be some remarkably, rare species. I know for
Yeah.
myself, one of the first few times I went offshore on my boat, I got to see a great white shark up close and impersonal. Like, whoa, this is so cool. You would have never gotten to see that if you would have been in the inside of the bay.
Oh yeah.
And with the changes in our tide cycles and maybe some things that are moving a little bit more up from south to north in terms of temps, the Gulf Stream, etc. Like we don't know what species might slowly but surely make their way up here. So it's to be discovered. Go get
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah, they're starting to catch all sorts of new species here in Virginia, like that we haven't seen, say, for instance, 10 years ago.
Hmm.
I know a couple years back where they were catching snappers off the wrecks. Like that was something that was never heard of. And then a couple years back, people were catching red snappers all over our wrecks. And that's
Yeah.
usually more of like the Carolinas to down south type of fishery. And we got a little snippet of it, but haven't seen it since. But it's
It,
just you don't know what you're gonna get when you're
mhm.
out there. It's pretty fun. Like that's like the most fun fishing to me. Like I enjoy cobia fishing. I enjoy seeing them like sight casting fish and getting your heart racing on that. But what I truly love doing is dropping baits to the bottom and wreck fishing, deep dropping, stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think the other side of that reward too is the table fare. A
Oh
lot of
yeah.
those bottom. Yeah, I mean, you talk about some good eating. Those blue line golden tiles, those rosies, the barrel fish. Barrel fish kind of look kind of plain Jane. But they
Yeah,
are good eating.
they're amazing table fare. Like my favorite eating fish in the whole world is a golden tile. I mean,
Hmm.
the meat, the texture on a golden tile is unlike any other fish. It's almost their diet consists of like these little lobsters that they find in the mud, or these little crustaceans, whether it be crab, shrimp, lobsters, mollusk, anything they find in that mud, they're gonna eat it, and it gives that the flavor and the texture of that meat. Just it's just no fish like it here in Virginia.
I wonder if that's why I smell like Chick-fil-A all the time is because that's what I eat all the time. No, I'm just kidding.
That's funny.
That's an interesting thing to think about is that the diet equates to sort of the texture flavor of the actual meat as opposed to, maybe something that consumes mostly like other fish, like a flounder, for example. Flounder is very tasty, it's very delicious, light, flaky, but it definitely has a an oilier, sort of flavor
Yeah,
profile to it, whereas that tilefish is just this like light, fluffy, buttery.
buttery.
Yeah,
Yep,
you took the word out of my
buttery.
mouth.
Yep, seriously, it's so good. And it's crazy. Like cobia is a good eating fish, and all it eats is menhaden, bunker.
Hmm.
And you would think like some fish taste like what they eat. If a cobia tasted like a bunker, we'd be in some trouble.
There's no doubt about that. But cobia, interestingly enough, and I've found this as far as like what side of the bay they're caught on, what you finding in their stomachs, some of those
Whether it be
fish,
crabs.
yeah, some of those fish, I will, God is my witness, they do taste a little different. Some of those late, August, early September fish that we caught, out towards the mouth of the bay and even on some buoys that opened up and completely full of crabs. I was like, man, I think this was an offshore cobia that just kind of, migrated in here for today because of whatever, tide cycle or sea surface
Yeah,
temperatures, whatever. Opened that thing up, filleted it, ate it, and I was like, wow, that one tasted remarkably different than a, mid-July upper bay fish. So
oh
it's
yeah, definitely.
it's cool to kind of learn that about, how, the old saying, you are what you eat. I guess it is very true with regards to to these fish.
Yep.
I want to pick your brain real quick from a technical perspective on maybe a specific species that you guys are going to go after. I see them often. I don't really know much about them. To me, they just look like, sunburnt sea bass, but these rosies, is what,
Ah, the black belly rosefish.
yeah, the black belly rosefish. So talk to me a little bit about that fish in terms of like, what's the kind of keeper size? Because they don't look like they're huge fish. So like,
No, so
what's the keeper
think
size on
world
those?
think there is no limit, no size limit, nor possession limit on black belly rosefish.
Interesting.
They are in the scorpion fish family, so it's cool about them is well, cool and not cool if you get poked by them. But if you get pricked by a rosefish, you swell up just a little bit. I mean, they're not like an actual scorpion fish where it could really cause some damage to you. They're just in the same family as them. They get these bright orange colors to them, bright orange, yellow colors to them. And the reason why they're called black belly rosefish is because if you ever get a chance to catch one, you open up its mouth, it's pitch black. And then if you open its stomach cavity up and clean one, it is pitch black. Their stomach
Whoa.
lining is black, like 3 a.m. black.
Oh my gosh. It's comical asking you of all the species I could have just randomly, guys, this is not scripted. I didn't ask him to, prepare a thesis on black-bellied rosefish. I just literally pulled that one out of the hat of the fish that he mentioned. And all of a sudden we're talking to Encyclopedia Britannica, getting all of the information. But
Yeah,
that's bizarre about the whole black thing. And then the fact that they're not limited in terms of size or harvest. What do they taste like? I mean, they look beautiful.
they're they're very beautiful and they taste amazing. Like on on my scale of fish, they are just right there with a golden tile. Like
Wow.
there's no fishy smell to them. There's no fishy taste whatsoever, and there's not even a bloodline on the fish.
What?
Yeah, I'm serious. Like if you fillet a black belly rosefish out, there is a slight discoloration. It's not red.
Interesting.
It's like a tan color where
Hmm.
a bloodline would be on a normal fish, but it's you don't have to cut trim or do anything with these fish. Like say for instance, like a cobia where we cut the bloodline out of it.
Right, right.
All of you just got to cut the rib bones and cut the pin bones out of them, and they're good to go. I mean,
Wow.
in my opinion, they're way better than sea bass. They're way better than tog. They're way better than sheep's head. They're in a class of their own. The only
Man.
fish I can relate it to is a hog snapper, like a hogfish snapper.
Okay. Yep.
So
And we don't really see those around here, do we?
no, but I got a sample of them when I went down to fish in Key West. But I wish we had them down here. Golly, they were good.
No doubt about that. So on these, rosefish, in terms of getting located to target one of them, and then, I'm assuming from a tackle perspective, it's very, very similar to sea bass, but in terms of bait, so get me located and then get me on some bait. If I want to try to go after these black-bellied rosefish, where am I going to be looking? What kind of bottom am I going to be looking at? And then, what kind of bait am I going to be using?
All right, so these the black belly rosefish, they kind of stay near the bottom, harder bottoms, not mud, and you're gonna be around the shelf or the canyon, the Norfolk Canyon,
Okay.
and you're gonna be in about, I've called them as shallow as 300 feet of water, but rule of thumb, they're usually 500 or deeper, depending on just which side of the canyon you're gonna fish.
Got it.
So yeah, you're looking for hard bottom one, and then you're looking for it to be in about 300 to 500 feet, sometimes deeper. Like I've caught rosefish in 1,000 feet of water. It's
Hmm.
just if you have a really good transducer, a through haul
Hmm.
that puts out a lot of hertz, that you'll be able to mark. They almost have like just it just looks like teeny yellow specks on the fish finder,
Okay.
but they usually school up. They're in groups. They're not single fish like a grouper or like a golden. They're not just going to be a single. It's going to be a little small group of them. And yeah, your rig's just like sea bass, but just beefier just because you're fishing that deeper water. You never know what you're going to catch.
Right.
So it's around the 100-pound leader to 150-pound leader,
Wow.
and 7 to 8, maybe even 9 on circle hooks. They have huge mouths. Like mouth wise, they're say a 2-pound sea bass, their mouths are not really that big, but a 2-pound black belly rosefish mouths are massive.
Mm.
So they have no problem taking the 8-aught, 9-aught circle hook. And for bait squid, I mean, anything down there is going to be hungry. You
Yeah.
don't have to really be picky with your baits or get them all prepped up real nice or anything like that when you're targeting them. You can just use chunk bait. And everything down there in the deep has humongous eyes because, like I
Ah,
said, because there's no
light.
sunlight really.
Yeah.
So they're going basically off of just we use a lot of deep drop lights, but a lot of it goes off of vibration and scent. A little bit of sight is used when they get really close up to the bait,
Hmm.
but yeah, you don't really have to be picky. These fish are hungry. They're down there. They want to eat anything and everything they can't get their mouth on.
Man, they sound like me around dinner time, and it does make sense about the light. Like the aperture on a lens. I'm sure Jenny from Shutter Speed could elaborate on this, but when you open
Oh yeah.
when you open the aperture of a lens for a longer period of time and larger, it allows more light in than smaller. And like our human eyeballs allow a certain amount of light in. So those like swordfish or even big eye tuna, that larger eyeball is able to get a better picture of what's around them with less light than a creature with a smaller eyeball.
Oh, 100%. Everything in the deep just everything has big eyes, or where they have either big eyes or they have really strong lateral lines, or they have really good sense of smell, stuff like that, just to give them the edge when they're down that deep.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Well, man, it's exciting to hear about this team up. I'm looking forward to hearing more reports. And I would just say to anybody listening that's ever considered, booking a trip and wondering, what's going to be, the outcome of this trip. The way I look at this is like, hey, if I'm on a boat and I've got an expert captain, my chances of catching fish are really, really high. Now with this team up, I'd have the chance to go get on a boat with two expert captains sharing, a pooled set of resources and knowledge. So I feel like if I'm out fishing with, Real Release, Captain Robbie, and Sashimi, Captain Andy at the same time, I'm pretty sure we're not coming home with an empty box. So no pressure, knock
Yeah,
on
exactly.
wood, obviously. But if folks do want to connect with you guys and get booked on, are y'all going to come up with a name for the combo, or we're just going to run it under?
No, I mean, me and Robbie, it's just you can contact either or,
Okay,
and we have plenty of dates open. It's our winter grind, so
got it.
yeah, it's something we both love to do. We of course love the cobia fish, but a lot of us can't wait to wreck fish and deep drop because it's just, I wouldn't say it's more exciting. It's just a different fish that we haven't targeted all year long, and it's just something new.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to hear more about what happens and look forward to seeing some reports and talking again soon. So I know for you, what's going to be the best number to contact you and get booked, and then we'll also drop Captain Robbie's number in the show notes as well.
Awesome. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead and hit the folks listening with your cell number.
All right, 757-818-7380.
Awesome. Fantastic. Cap Mandy, thanks so much for that insight. And I just love talking to you because I'm like, I'm going to learn so much more than just about, the fish. So go get some dinner, man. We'll talk soon. And folks, that's going to wrap up a really cool offshore report of what's happening here in the Lower Chesapeake Bay and out towards the canyon. Y'all stick around for a word from our sponsors. And we're going to spend some time digging in, learning a little bit more about how to get located offshore. We're going to be talking to an expert who runs, it's called Hilton's Offshore Navigator, one of our show sponsors. So y'all stick around. We'll be right back. Hilton's Offshore Charts. The days of heading out and blindly looking for good fishing areas are pretty much over. Don't waste time and money on fuel searching for fish. You need the most recent, highest resolution images to not only know where to go, but where not to go. The knowledge provided by today's technology is critical when planning an offshore fishing trip. So make the choice that professional captains all over the East Coast make and choose Hilton's Real-Time Navigator. The easy-to-use interface and excellent customer service will have you on the fish every time you go. Check them out at hiltonsoffshore.com. That's hiltonsoffshore.com. All right, guys. Well, welcome to a new segment. I'm excited to introduce this to you guys. This gentleman's been a friend of the Great Days Outdoors Podcast Network for a long time, and we're excited to get to have him here on the show for the Lower Chesapeake Bay Fishing Report. Welcome, Tom Hilton of Hilton's Offshore. Welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
Hey, great, Luke. Thanks for having me on, man. Excited about talking about your East Coast stuff.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, man. I'm excited to learn. I've spent a lot of time in the Bay fishing, chocolate milk water. This is way outside of my, comfort zone. So I'm eager to learn from someone like yourself who's got the experience and obviously has the tool for us to use to learn from. So before we dive into how, Hilton's Offshore and Hilton's Real-Time Navigator works, tell us a little bit about you. What's your story and how did Hilton's come to be?
Well, my dad basically raised me fishing since I was, tall enough to walk. So I've been fishing all my life, and I got interested in mapping. I'm trained as an architect, actually.
Okay.
Here in Texas, but it's an interesting road that I've taken to get to where I'm at. But it's everything that I've learned and all the different avenues that I've taken: architecture, furniture design, manufacturing, and then mapping are all interrelated, believe it or not. And got interested in mapping back in the late 90s. And started making paper charts. And so we had them down here in Texas. In the South, we have Academy Sporting Goods, a really big distribution of stores around the South. And we had our charts and books and the Academy and then West Marine and all these different marinas. And I got kind of frustrated with that in short order because of the limitations. You have to print so many thousands of copies to get your pricing in line to be able to have them in these big outlets. And if you have a mistake or if you wanted to make a change, you couldn't do it until you reprinted. And a lot of times you couldn't do that for quite a while until you sold your inventory. So early 2000s, I said, you know what, we need to go to the internet. If I want to make a change, I was going to look done, So that opened up a whole new horizon on bringing in dynamic imagery. So we launched Hilton's in May of 2004, a little bit over 20 years ago. Pioneered a lot of the online mapping concept. So what it does is we tie into various satellite feeds, sea surface temperature, chlorophyll, altimetry, salinity, and bathymetry. We're always looking for better bathymetry charts and tying them all together and, geo-referencing them and overlaying them with known fishing structures. So it gives you a reference to see where these structures are happening and then giving you the tools to analyze. And in the days and the hours preceding your trip, you can understand the dynamics of which way are these edges moving and how fast, so you can interpolate how to intercept them. And you can also save them as navigation charts to navigate on using our nav app on your smart device, your phone or a tablet, and as well as our Sat2 nav system that plugs into your chart plotters. And you're able to surf Hilton's directly from your Garmin, for instance, in that type of situation. But we're constantly innovating and keeping in front forefront of this technological wave as best we can. It's a full-time job, really. I think you're in the IT business, so you understand that technology is leaping and bounding exponentially, and
Yeah, we're just trying to keep up. It's
trying to hold on to this technological tiger tail is kind of flings you around somewhat sometimes, but it's always a challenge, and it really makes it fun for me. I've always I like to design and create things, and so this is something that will never be finished. It's always going to be a work in progress. But along the way, I've met over the last 20 plus years. I've met so many great people, and some have become really good friends. Some of my customers, and one of the things that really sets us apart from our competition is if you go to the contact page on the site, and you'll see my cell phone and my email address. So when you call, the president of the company is going to answer. And I encourage all of my subscribers, and I've got thousands of them, to call or email if you have any questions or issues. I'll do the best I can to address them. And that's what people really appreciate, the level of customer service that we provide, and it's something that I take a lot of pride in.
I don't think that can be matched, in the industry as far as that sort of level of customer service. And, I want to go back to something that you said and, compliment you on the fact that, in any sort of innovative technology space, whether it's IT or creating, maps or ultimately a navigational tool, time is always the measure of truth or capability. And how long have you now been operating Hilton's? How long has it been?
20 and a half years.
So 20 years you've been in business operating and creating. So I got to imagine you've learned a trick or two over the years. So, for somebody like myself that's logging in, I'm getting excited. I want to take my fishing to the next level. In other words, become more of a student of my recent past trips as well as a better planner for my future trips. And I go ahead and say, hey, it's time for me to, I've bought the boat, I've bought all the fishing gear, I've bought the expensive rods and reels, I've paid in tears, I've paid in blood and sweat. Now I'm going to make, what, in comparison is a very small investment to have, Hilton's Real-Time Navigator. So I'm logged in for the first time. What are some of the things that I'm going to be presented with? I'm logged in here right now, for the Virginia, East Coast region. What are some of the features that are going to be at my fingertips that I want to key in on right out of the gate?
Well, you have sea surface temperatures. On the left side of the screen, you'll see your different options, 3D bottom, sea temps, altimetry, chlorophyll. We have 2 currents models,
okay,
and a salinity model as well. And then we have some atmospheric buttons, radar, IR loop, wind and waves. So really, there's several factors that will come into play why fish are there on one spot one day and not the next. So we're tracking as many of those factors as we can. I'm certain that we're not tracking all of them because it's just not there. The technology is not available to us. But
right.
If I'm on a spot, I'm looking for 3 things. 1 is structure, 2 is current, and 3 is bait.
Okay.
So when I get on a spot, I'm looking, and all right, we've got some good current, we got structure. I'm looking for bait. If I don't have all 3 of those, I'm going to continue until I do have those 3 basic drinks. Your watercolor, I've seen plenty of fish caught in pea green water, maybe blue, 10 feet below the surface. So watercolor is not a deal breaker one way or the other. I do want to know what the color is on a spot, but basically your chlorophyll is green. It's what makes your grass green in your yard. And it's found in the plant version of the plankton, the phytoplankton. So when you got higher concentrations of phytoplankton, you've got greener, more turbid water. So I want to know, I'm not really against green water at all. I think it's the beginning of the food chain. Turbidity allows bait to hide better. I like to find temp breaks where you have a color change. It's green on one side and blue on the other. It's really, I think, is just my personal opinion. That's why I really love finding color changes and rips. Those are where things collect. Even if it's a frontal tip break, which is the same color on each side, the flotsam and sargassum and bait collect along these breaks. And so the pelagics run these breaks like a buffet line. And so it's good to know where those are, right? So,
and for those color changes that you're referring to, so I've got these options on the left-hand side. If I'm wanting to look for those colors that you're talking about, is that going to be inside of the chlorophyll shot specifically?
correct.
Okay,
Yep.
so I'm clicking on that, and yep, I can see. So when I click on chlorophyll, I've got the two different options of images to look at, and they're obviously time stamped, different dates. So I'm clicking on September 23rd, which would be yesterday, and I can see this orangish and then yellow, green, and then blue. So I can see the lines where the color changes are. So then I might take that into consideration and then compare that against my sea surface temperature. And then what else might I look at to try to triangulate a specific spot where I'm looking at those different data points coming together to try to locate bait and ultimately whatever pelagic I'm chasing?
Well, I mean, speaking of chlorophyll, there's a limitation because you only get one shot a day, if that. If there's too many clouds, you won't even get a download from the satellite. So
okay.
The limitation is that you only get one shot. It's in the evenings. So, like you said, the latest shot is from the 23rd.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some services that quote, hey, we have quote unquote real-time data. So let's say you're out there right now. Hey, let's look for the real-time chlorophyll shot. Well, it's the same shot from last night. So you need to understand the limitations of what's available just generally. And I try to be honest about what is available and what's not. The sea temps, if you let's click on the sea temps and go to SST NCVA, which is centered more
North Carolina and Virginia.
Yeah. And let's go down to, we've gotten 5 sea temp shots today so far.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all kind of cloudy. We have a system that's out there that's so let's go to the 5th shot, or the 6th shot, which is 1750 yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And then click on that. That brings it into the system. And that's based on a 68 to 84 range.
Okay.
And so I'm going to customize this shot to be more optimized for the inshore area. And so on the right side of your screen is your temperature adjust bar.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll take the 84, click on the blue button, the blue arrow underneath the 84, and let's drop it down to, let's say, 76.
Yep.
And then let's bring the 68 and bring it up to, let's say, 70.
Okay.
And this is entirely up to you. Which part of this image are you interested in? And then at the top of the image, at the top of the bar, you'll see adjust.
Mm-hmm.
So click adjust.
Got it. Loading.
So this does several things. One is, if let's say you're fishing for wahoo, and you've never caught a wahoo in water colder than say 67 or warmer than say 76. So you can set that range 67 to 76, and so it optimizes the water inside of that comfort zone and eliminates the water outside of it, and then it sharpens the image and pops out these edges. And let's say I'm going to tweak it, and you have unlimited access to the data. So let's bring it down on the bottom from 70 to say 68.
Okay.
And on the top end, let's bring it to let's go 75.
All right.
And then hit adjust again.
Okay.
And so you can get it the way you want it. And then once you get it the way you want it, on the upper left corner is a blue circle that is your action icon. Mm-hmm. And then the top thing is save it, so you can save it as a navigation chart.
Okay. So
now that's pretty well optimized for the inshore areas, and you can see where it goes from orange to blue or green. Mm-hmm. Those are your frontal temp breaks, and that's if there's any sargassum out there. That's where your weed line will be.
Okay.
But the technology is just not here yet to tell you whether or not there's sargassum on that line. I'll just say if there is any near, that's where it'll be.
If I was looking for that line of potential grass that maybe might hold some mahi or whatnot, and I can see this, light orange line that kind of turns to yellow and then ultimately green, the implication there is that it would be the most likely area that we might find some of that grass residing.
Well, you really, Luke, you want to find where you have the best definition, where it goes. It's a very stark, very defined edge, where it goes from orange to blue, just boom. You don't want it, feathering out from orange to green to light blue to dark blue over miles. You want it to be very sharp edge, and that's where you want to focus on. So you have sea temps, you have chlorophyll, you have altimetry, which is your upwelling and your downwelling currents. All of these have favorable and unfavorable areas on them. So the key is to using Hilton's is to look to where you have the most overlapping favorable conditions, and it'll narrow down where you want to go, and as importantly, where you do not want to go. And it'll save you tons of money and fuel and frustration and not fishing in the areas that you don't need to be fishing in. So
yeah, this makes so much sense in terms of like taking the guesswork out of locating yourself or getting a report from a buddy, and then we call them the My Buddy reports. Right. And then you take that report and you go and you kind of verify it for yourself. Like, well, he said he saw, well, let's go find out, and like, we talked with Captain Bill Pappas and he's kind of mentioned how the water is not, the cleanest that it could be, and this, that, and the other. And, just looking at the chlorophyll shot the sea surface temperature shot, we're not seeing any really super clear defined breaks, which, kind of matches up with what we're hearing. I do want to key in on something else that, you mentioned to me, so looking at the atmospheric buttons on the left-hand side, right now I pay for fish weather. I pay for windy. I'm pretty sure I have a premium weather channel subscription. And every time, for near shore or bay fishing, we have a joke amongst us near shore and bay fishermen that like the weatherman's always wrong. It seems like they can never seem to get it right. You'll have the days where it's like you don't even plan to go out because it's supposed to be full clouds, and then you wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and you've already got a text from somebody, of a clear sky out near, ocean view. So do I also, when I'm looking at this, the wind waves or the radar, does that effectively take the place of me needing to carry all these other subscriptions, and I can kind of just see all of that data inside of Hilton's?
Correct. Yeah, it's like a one-stop shop. So it comes with the subscription. And you can go backwards or forwards in time on this as well. It's
I like that.
Kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so right now we have a hurricane looming here in the Gulf of Mexico. Looks like it's going to hit the northwest corner of Florida. But you have a lot of different options. Precipitation is something that when you just click on the precipitation button, you'll see where your rain is, your lightning strikes. And again, I designed a system that plugs into your Garmin's that transforms your Garmin into a fully functional PC, and you're able to, and I designed it for Starlink.
Okay.
So the big, it's a game changer. It's kind of like, the Seakeeper is a game changer for a lot of the big sport fishers. The Omni Sonar, a big game changer. Almost people think it's almost like cheating, because it's such an effective tool.
Right.
Elon Musk's Starlink is a game changer, and Hilton Sat-Nav is a game changer. There's nothing like it out there, and you're able to surf Hilton's directly from your Garmin and look at these real-time weather.
Oh wow!
While you're out there using your high-speed Wi-Fi from the Starlink system.
Wow, that's incredible.
And there's a lot of apps. You'll see hey, it looks okay. Your sea temps. Or, your waves and your winds are not so bad. Let's go. But wait a minute, let's look at the precipitation. Oh hell no! It's
yeah.
It's, we don't want to get hit by lightning and so forth. So it's really proven to be. This has been Tusky a Czechoslovakian company that we're interfacing with, and they've done a really good job. And so all these different, you have temperature, feels like temperature, precipitation, radar, satellite clouds, wind speed, wind gusts, air pressure. So you want to know your highs and lows, low pressure, thunderstorms, humidity.
Mm-hmm.
You click on C, you have a whole bunch of different options. So it'll show you you'll see the big wave heights down there on that system down south of Cuba that's looking to come into the Gulf. And
Yeah.
they got, 13, 14 foot waves.
Goodness.
And then if you click on that, you'll see a whole bunch of different options. Probably 9 or 10 options. There are currents and tidal currents and tidal surge. But it's just a lot of information. And then lastly, at the very bottom, black one is your automatic icon.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you're looking at wind gusts or wind speed.
Mm-hmm.
Now you click on that and you'll see all your different models. You got GFS, GEM, and then a bunch of European, just all kinds of stuff there. But really the big three are Icon, GFS, and GEM. And so you click on each one and you'll see how each model predicts what's happening. So you can kind of just keep an eye on what the computers are saying.
That's really interesting to me is the fact that I can, if I'm looking at this right now on my computer, which I am, but I've got the ability to integrate it into my Garmin, plotter and use it in the same way that I'm using it now, obviously with like a touch screen where I could click on the cloud cover, for example, or I could click on the precipitation and get an idea of what's happening or what's predicted to happen in real time, right there. And I could use that. I could be offshore with, Starlink, like you mentioned, or if I'm, for us here on the East Coast fishing within, say like the Chesapeake Light Tower, for example, a lot of times we still have, cell coverage, for those of us that are maybe fishing some of the nearshore wrecks or even fishing in the bay. I can't tell you the number of times that I wish I would have had a better idea of when a low pressure system was coming that might have produced a thunderstorm or when the cloud cover was actually going to come in, because I think the sentiment that most of us share is that the weatherman's always wrong. So instead of relying on the weatherman to get this basically same data from the satellites and interpret it correctly, and then we're getting their interpretation, we're kind of getting to cut out the middleman and become our own interpreters based on our experience specifically in the area versus like those guys are just trying to do a blanket report for the whole like viewing area, so to speak. Whereas we can now look, specifically in like, hey, I am near the Chesapeake Bay buoy line, or I am up above the fourth island, or I'm out, on some nearshore wrecks or by the light tower. I can now be very specific to where I'm interpreting my data, and I basically eliminate the need for bouncing between windy, fish weather, weather channel. I forget the other one that I always look at, and I'm always trying to triangulate these 3 or 4 different reports and get an idea of what may or may not happen. Now I can look at it very specifically myself and get my own idea of what's going to happen, and then kind of start to become a student of, was I right or was I wrong? And then you kind of learn how to interpret the data accordingly.
The weatherman's the only guy that can be wrong so many times and still keep his job, right?
There's so much truth to that. But as we wrap up, I want to key in on one thing that I think I personally want to become a better student of, and I think that this platform gives me the best chance to do so, and that is looking at historical data. So I'm curious if you could guide me through it. So I remember some specific dates from this summer, and I'm going to just use the example of nearshore fishing in the bay for cobia. I remember some specific days, what the weather was like for certain tournament days, but also what the bite was like. So for example, if I want to go back in time to July the 13th, which was a Saturday when we had a fishing tournament, can I do that? Go look at, the wind or the sea state, for example?
Yep, that's another thing that sets Hilton's apart from our competition is that we don't like letting go of the data. We've got terabytes of data on our server that go back years. So it allows you to go back in time and reverse engineer your trips. If you keep catch logs, why did I catch that fish on that spot on that day back in, July of 2021? And you can go back in time on the archives. So let's click on sea temps and then SST and CVA.
Okay.
And then click on any image, it doesn't matter.
All right.
Bring it in. And then go to the action icon, which is the blue circle on the upper left corner.
Yep.
And then go down to view archives.
Got it.
And it'll pull up thumbnails of the last few days of shots. But at the bottom is
the search.
You'll see it's right. So you click on the calendar on your start date. And let's just go back. On the upper left corner is a double arrow. That's your year.
Okay.
So let's just go back to last year at this time.
Got it.
Let me think. I had this time last year. This particular. Let me see real quick. Let's click on sea temps again. Sorry.
Okay. Oh no, you're good.
I added this. It's a crossover between Virginia and the North Carolina regions. Go to the new SST.
Okay.
And then do the same thing. Go back to view archives.
View archives. Yep.
What was your date that you were fishing?
July 13th. That Saturday.
So let's go on July 12th.
All right.
As your start date.
Okay.
And then, so your single arrow is your month. So you just click on that. We'll go back to July.
I'm there.
24. Make sure. And then I guess go to the 15th. So we'll go July 12th to the 15th. Just kind of cast a little bit bigger net than what we need.
Oh wow! Look at that.
So yeah, they were. So the 13th. Kind of cloudy on the 13th, unfortunately.
It sure was.
But let's go to the 14th.
Mm-hmm. Where it starts to clear up a little bit.
Yeah. And the nav tool, which is the oval with the white box up on the landmass, you can move it around.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll give you a coordinate, distance, and a bearing from your starting point, and then a depth and a temperature. Should give you a temperature.
Yep. As soon as yep.
And so I would I'm going to tweak it up to like 75 on the bottom end.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of sharpen the image and make it a little bit more usable.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go back on all the different imagery, sea temps, altimetry, chlorophyll, what was going on.
Oh, wow.
And, what's really cool too, Luke, is let's say you fish the same tournament every year,
mm-hmm.
and you'll have a good idea of where the fish were caught last year. So you can go back to the last tournament year's fishing days and look where where the fish were caught.
Mm-hmm.
You can create fish location icons on the spots if you know the exact spots, and you can tell it that I only want to see it on the images from that day. So on your chlorophyll from July 13th, your sea temps from July 13th, and your altimetry from July 13th. You'll only see those fish catch locations on those days. It's only pertinent for those particular days.
Got it.
So I call it fishing in rearview mirror.
Yeah.
It's proven to be such a great learning tool. I see here's what the conditions were last year. Now let's look at today's, and okay, we have similar conditions over here, but it's 30 miles over this way.
Got it.
Really helps to know which way to help you pinpoint which way you want to go.
Yeah, I think, for someone like myself who's fairly, new to this, for you, a lot of these terminologies and thought processes are so rote memory or muscle memory that you just kind of know where to go and where to think and where to find. And for me, it's going to be kind of some new discovery to go fish in the rearview mirror, put a few things together, put the puzzle pieces together and start to understand why things happened the way they did on certain days, or get my answers, get my questions answered. But I want to say this too. I'm excited to have more questions and know that I can just simply call you or email you and get direction as to how to find that. And then, once I become more familiar with how to navigate the tool, or I'm looking to get this specific question answered, like, why did I see such strong currents on this day, which seemed to create these rips that, caused the stingrays to stack up, which, man, the cobias were everywhere. Now I could go back historically and try to understand what was the moon phase, what were the sea surface temps in that area, what were the currents, and begin to understand that so that I could maybe anticipate that in a future, fishing day, or if I know I'm about to go fishing in a tournament, take a look around and see if I can't locate some of those data points that might indicate where that specific thing might stack up and recreate itself again in the future.
Right. You'll notice on on the July 14th shot that we show the moon phase for that day.
Ah, okay.
So when you go back in time, it'll show you what was shown on that day.
It was what? Waxing 57%. So,
correct.
And I'm a newbie when it comes to understanding what the different moon phases mean. But I do want to go back to early on our conversation. You said a word that I'm not gonna try to front in front of our listeners and pretend that I know. I had to go Google it. Can you tell the listeners what bathymetry refers to?
Bathymetry is just the mapping of the bottom contours, the terrain of the bottom of the ocean, really. So you have your canyons, your salt domes, your basins, just structure. And so also the shelf itself is it's a huge structural element out there. So it's interesting to be able to correlate what's happening on the surface relative to what's happening on the bottom.
Right.
For instance, so you have a tent break that's traversing the shelf at a 90-degree angle, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
And those intersection points of that surface structure relative to your bottom bathymetry, the shelf, is of interest because there are some fish that are following the bottom structure. There are some fish that are following the surface structure. So these intersection areas have a bell curve of fish where there's a higher concentration of fish on those intersections. And therefore your chances of success are increase. And that's really what it's all about, is increasing your odds of success.
That makes a lot of sense.
100%. It's all about playing the odds and putting yourself in the best position for success.
Right. That makes perfect sense. It's the old joke about, they call it fishing for a reason. It's helping us to leverage the technology that's at our fingertips through Hilton's Real-Time Navigator to begin to be able to close the gap and decrease the margin that separates us from success, and ultimately have more fun and maybe save some money on fuel along the way. So I'm excited to have more of these conversations each month with you as we begin to, dig into different topics and learn more about certain things that's going to be specific to some of the things going on in our fishery here on the East Coast. But for this week's show and those that are listening that have maybe just heard Hilton's for the first time and are interested to learn more, or go ahead and, grab that subscription so they can get started themselves, what's going to be the easiest way for them to find you, find Hilton's, and get their subscription started?
Just go to hiltonsoffshore.com and
Got it.
You'll see everything that you need.
Perfect. Well, again, I'm new to this. I've only been inside of Hilton's now for about a week and a half, and I already am picking up on some things, but I'm, it's like any new tool. Like you just got, Garmin units on my boat this year for the first time. And, the first couple of, trying to download Active Captain and figure it out, it was very overwhelming, but now it feels like, this is a piece of cake because you just become familiar with it. And it's kind of the same, new learning curve experience. But I'll tell you what, just even looking at like wind and waves alone, my level of confidence in that, knowing it's coming straight from these Venturi satellites, that is not being interpreted by a weatherman, it makes me feel a lot better about, the, I guess, veracity or the truth in what I'm looking at, as opposed to just a random app that's out there on the open market, and knowing that the guy that's doing it, is a avid and passionate fisherman himself. So it just kind of changes the lens by which I look at this data holistically. So I can't thank you enough for being a sponsor of the show and helping us, bring this information to anglers in our area. And I'm real excited to continue these conversations into the future.
I am too, Luke. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Well, guys, that's going to wrap up. What are we going to call this thing, Tom? What are we going to call this segment that we do together?
That's a good question. Give me some time on that one.
All right. Well, we'll come up with something good. For now, we're going to just call it the Hilton segment, but we're going to come up with something cool for the future. So when you guys hear, "Hey, welcome to this blank segment," you're going to know what's coming. But that's going to wrap that to be determined up for this week. So you guys stick around for a word from our sponsors, who's bringing the show to us free each week, and we'll be right back with you here real soon. It's time we talked about catching some serious savings. Imagine harnessing the power of the sun to cut your energy bills and having a roof that's built to last. Convert Solar and Roofing specializes in top-notch solar installations and durable roofing solutions that stand up to the toughest elements. Their solar panels are designed to maximize efficiency, and their roofs are built with premium materials to ensure long-lasting protection. Whether you're out on the water or at home, their expert team ensures you're covered. As fellow anglers in the Lower Chesapeake Bay, the team at Convert Solar and Roofing cares about both sustainable living and sustainable fishing. So reel in those savings today and visit www.convert-solar.com or call 757-44-SOLAR. Make your energy and roof as reliable as your favorite fishing lure. Call Convert Solar and Roofing today. All right, guys. Well, welcome to this final segment of this week. We're going to talk a little bit of inshore fishing. This past weekend, we had the Caitlin Inshore Slam Classic. I know a bunch of really quality redfish were caught, some nice specks, and I've even heard of a few flounder inside the inlet, but I'm not the guy to talk to when it comes to fishing inshore. There's one man with the plan. His name is Captain Eric Myers with Heads and Tails Charters. Captain Eric, welcome back to the show, brother. How you doing?
Good, man. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. I'm just praying for, us to get a little bit more of this consistent, decent fall weather. It's been a lot of fun to, play around in the inlet a little bit, explore some of these, deeper tributaries of the western and eastern branch of the Lynnhaven. But, for those tuning in that are switching to fall tackle, light tackle, etc., here it is, the very beginning of October. What can we be expecting? What have you been seeing and catching the last couple of days, and what are you guys looking to do in the coming days?
Mostly what we've been seeing is a big push of upper slot to over slot reds in the inlet.
Mm-hmm.
What's come in this time of year, they're chasing all that fall bait. If anyone's been out on the inlet recently, they have seen the amount of bait that I'm talking about. It's all the mullet, it's all the menhaden. There's a plethora of different baits out there that are all getting eaten right now.
In years past, this time of year, and I know that I've talked about this with Chris Ludsford and the new bridge, the Lesnar Bridge, amount of water flowing. In years past, did you see this kind of bait population, or does this seem unusually high?
I'd say in the given last 5 years, our menhaden have not been as thick,
mm-hmm.
resulted in a lot of other game fish not being prevalent.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say when I first started my charter business, 8 years ago, it was nothing to throw a 6-foot net and get 500 baits.
Wow.
Now it's like pretty much the same now as it was back then. There's no real need to throw a 10-footer or 12-footer now.
Yeah.
Unlike the past years.
So you mentioned some of these big slot and even upper slot redfish. You took me and the guys from the click-through out to catch a couple of those. And the way that they hit on light tackle was some of the most fun that I've had in a while. We were all like giggling like schoolgirls, just so excited with what was going on. So for those that are listening, talk me through, if I'm going to just target redfish, what kind of setup should I be using from the rod that I've got, the reel, line weight on down to the hook?
It's a loaded question because there's not one true setup that does it all.
Got it.
I'm going to go over the 2 setups that you will need to fish Lynnhaven, that is.
Uh-huh.
Just because we have such big tidal areas where there's a ton of current, and then we have in the backs of the river where you don't have to use a heavy rod to pull a fish away from, say, in oyster bed. You can actually play with it. My go-to setups are a 7-foot medium light spinning rod, 2,500, 8 to 10 pound braid. That's our go-to. I carry 4 of them on the boat every time I leave the dock. That'll be for most of our fishing that's not in the Long Creek or in the front by Lesnar Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Our lower current areas where we can pull fish away and the fish can't use the current to really rip us into a dock or break us off. Our second setup is 7-foot medium heavy or medium, depending on what pound braid you want to put on it.
Mm-hmm.
We medium head or medium rods. 3,500 with 15 to 20 pound braid.
Okay.
That's good for your, let's say, Long Creek. If you're fishing bait on the bottom, we're flipping live baits next to docks. This time of year, we do a lot of live bait just because it's really hard to get a fish to break off of all the live bait that's in the inlet right now.
Right. Come eat my little DOA shrimp and ignore the live shrimp or the live menhaden that's swimming past you. Unlikely.
It's very unlikely. It's almost hard to find dial fish in because yesterday they were on mullet. Day before that, they wouldn't touch a mullet, but they would eat every menhaden you threw in the water.
Interesting. Huh.
I know we've had days where that recent click-through trip where we had to start out using fresh caught shrimp, but after a certain amount of tide cycle, we ended up using bigger live baits like those big sand perch and stuff.
The croakers, the little baby croakers, little baby spots, those little are they pinfish or hogfish, the little things that we had to cut the spines off of.
Those are pinfish.
Pinfish, yeah.
Yep. Great bait. You just got to give them a haircut. Everything in the river likes to eat them. Everything in the river will spit them out once they hit those spines.
And those spines you're talking about, they're on the top.
Yep, the dorsal fin and the two little peck fins by his gill plate. You got to cut them off. And that'll be probably one of your best bait choices for dirtier water. Something that way that fish gives you a lot of flash. Because those guys are real fast on a hook.
Yeah, they're hardy little baits. They're like hard-bodied, hardy little baits. They're kind of, flat and tall. They move a good bit of water when they swim around, it looks like. But to your point, like I would have never considered to give them a haircut, so to speak. But they're kind of like the porcupines of the sea, where it's like you get close to them.
Everything on that little fish is made to irritate you.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times I've been spined by those things, but it's a lot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But I recommend not tossing it back and using it for bait.
Yeah.
We were getting 34, 35-inch redfish in the river on, 4 or 5-inch, possibly even some 6-inch baits.
Yep.
We were using some big croakers that day.
To your point about having the two rods, and I'm glad that you made the delineation between the two, because I brought a knife to a gunfight. I think I had a 6/8 kind of medium light type rod with, I want to say 10-pound braid, and I think you cut my 12-pound leader off and put 30-pound leader on, which probably was the only reason I got that fish in. But when that thing hit and I was trying to pull it away from the dock against that strong outgoing current, I mean, it felt like I was fighting a 60-pound cobia equivalent. It was a very, very tough fight. And had I had a little bit heavier rod with some heavier braid, 1,000-pound or 1,000, more reel, a 3,500 instead of a 2,500, it would have been a lot more doable, but it was still exciting. And of course, those big old reds were just beautiful to hold up and look at. So talk me through like time of day, tide cycle. I'm going to go chase those reds, or maybe hope to hop into one of those, big chopper blues. Time of day, tide cycle, insights as to which ones of those would be best to maybe target those.
I'm always a fan of first light. If you can get like the first light of the day, what's that, 6:30, 7?
Yeah, right about now. Yep.
In there. If you can get that with the start of an incoming tide, a lot of times those flats in the back towards like Keeling the Drain and stuff, they put it up with those reds and trout. A lot of bluefish swim through there.
Okay.
But for like the main creeks, the easy to get to spots, all the docks on Long Creek, I'd strongly advise outgoing tide.
Okay.
I'm more preferred to fish like the medium tide, like midway through the cycle.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that cleaner water has gotten out, and a lot of the dirty water has gotten it, like coming in from the back of the river, which is pulling on.
Okay.
That's probably one of your better, if you're a novice to it, that would be your better tide cycle to go.
Based on my experiences of, listening to you talk about fishing, but then experiencing fishing with you, my recommendation to anybody listening would be to just simply book Heads and Tails charters and go out with you and actually get to experience this stuff firsthand and learn from somebody who does it, every single day, and also obviously have some fun and be successful. Because I can tell you from personal experiences, I've gone out there and tried to fish myself, and it just feels like I'm shooting in the dark. And then to go out with you and to get a little bit more laser focused and start to understand some of the why we're fishing here in this area and at this tide, is invaluable. Not to go out there and just try to like beat up the drum or the speckled trout or whatever, but to at least know that those few times when I'm able to get out and have that fun little recreational trip, maybe go out with my dad or my brother, to be able to actually go out and be a little bit successful is definitely more fun than just a couple hours of nothing. So folks that are listening in and are like, man, it's time for me to get out there and get on these things, and they want to go out with you, what's going to be the best way for them to contact you and book a trip on the Heads and Tails inshore charter boat?
They can either give me a call or text on my cell phone number.
Mm-hmm.
They can book me through my Valley Pro account, which just gives you all my open days, and it's pretty easy to book through that.
Okay, perfect. Well, we'll drop that cell number and the booking website into the show notes. And then as far as what's coming up ahead, what are some of your next couple of inshore trips? What are you guys going to be targeting? We still going to be going after those nice slot and upper reds, or are we going to be doing something different as these, first couple of days of October unfold?
The next 2 days is well, tomorrow's going to be the slot reds in the river, and then I think Friday we're going to be targeting Sheep's Head and Tog on their way out in the bay, and then probably this weekend we'll probably be doing a swordfish trip.
Very cool. Ah, the swordfish. Yeah. So we have the what is it? The Ocean's East Swordfish Tournament, and I believe you guys are a part of that as well too, right?
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
So stop shop with heads and tails.
Yeah, I know it's a little bit of everything. Everything from an offshore trip to inshore bay to inshore to
We'll play on the sandbar.
sandbar charters. I love it. If I go by one day and I see you with a charter full of people with like their, beach towels and umbrellas, and then next thing I know, I see you on the sandbar grilling up, fresh shrimp or something, I'll be like, the full evolution of heads and tails is complete.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, Captain Eric, thank you so much for hopping on to tell us a little bit about what's going on in the rivers and give us some of those tips about how to be better prepared and how to better get located to try to be successful in some of those redfish.
Oh, dude, no problem. I love talking to you.
Absolutely. Well, folks, that's going to wrap up that segment talking with Captain Eric. Let's stick around for a word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back with the What Did You Learn segment. Did you know every 40 seconds someone has a heart attack or stroke? In that moment, every second counts and every critical decision matters. Air Medcare Network's air ambulance providers can provide life-saving care directly to those in need at a moment's notice. With 320 locations across 38 states, they're the largest air ambulance membership network. Rest assured, they've got you and your entire household covered. Membership is just $99 a year or just $79 for seniors. Visit gdo.deals/airmedcare to enroll. Welcome to the What Did You Learn segment. Man, I'm overwhelmed with kind of excitement for, how I can improve my fishing and the things that I consider when I'm planning a trip for whatever it is. In case you guys don't know this, besides Google and YouTube, podcasts here are the third largest search engine in the world. So I'm just excited that we're starting to build this, kind of portfolio of information that we can all access, historically too. So, come this time next year when it's hitting the fall time and we want to think about, going after some reds or, maybe going out there and targeting a couple of, bottom fish, near the canyon, or perhaps we want to, get a little bit better at getting located when it comes to cobia fishing in the middle of the summer. We can go back and we can start using Hilton's real-time navigator to, look at some of those conditions, take a look at the specific day and what the moon phase was or what the sea surface temps were. So I don't know about y'all, but to me, it seems like a very worthy investment. I've already got mine. I'm already, gone back and plotted and considered some things from, July the 13th, really just excited to understand what are the conditions that, create favorable, fishing. And I think going forward, it's going to be a really cool tool to, be a little bit more effective, efficient, and maybe save a few bucks on gas and come home with a better harvest. So anyways, very excited to learn more about that. Going to be talking to, Tom Hilton with Hilton's Real-Time Navigator. We're going to have him on the show periodically, and we'll be able to dig into some different things to understand how certain things work, because there's a lot of information available on that site. And then lastly, just excited to see what's happening in our fishing community as, folks have come together like Captain Robbie and Captain Andy to pool resources and work together to make a great offshore experience for deep dropping for golden tiles, blue line tiles, those black belly rosies. I really, really enjoyed talking to Captain Andy about that, just to understand that there's, all these connections of the species and the genome and whatever, going up there. Oh, okay, they're part of the scorpion family. Well, why is it called the scorpion family? Well, there's apparently a family of fish that if they poke you, they cause a reaction. So just kind of cool to learn that. And then lastly, something I really enjoy about talking to Captain Eric Myers is that to me, he's kind of like a tactician when it comes to fishing, just understanding how, starting from above the water to all the way thinking through below the water. Okay, I'm going to be in some heavier current, some deeper water. I'm fishing for the same size fish, I'm still going after that slot or upper, above slot, red drum just for the fun of the fight. Let me go ahead and make sure that I'm okay. I'm now in 18, 20 foot of water. I got current. I'm going to switch over and use my heavier stick with my heavier line. Those are things that, I would have never thought to do. I'm just, hey, I'm going fishing in the inlet. I'm going to grab my, little light tackle rods and not think twice about it. So that was really cool to understand that. I go back to something that I learned in some golf psychology is just to always stay curious. Whatever the situation, just ask yourself, like, is this going to work? Is this going to be the best tool for the job? And I think a lot of the times the answer might come back and be perhaps different than the current tool that you have for that job. So stay curious, keep learning. I think this is going to be a great way to improve hookups and enjoy your fishing experiences much more. So guys, enjoyed the show this week. Again, learned a whole lot. Look forward to having some future conversations with these guys. Y'all be safe, have fun this weekend, and we'll look forward to catching up next week. So that's going to wrap it up this week. Please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. And remember, to get your free AFTCO Camo Sunglasses Cleaning Cloth, just text the acronym LCBFR to 779-345-2918 to get your promo code and be added to our email list so we can send you the new show each week. You guys keep whacking them and be safe out there.